welcome to the Emblazers show, where B2B leaders are igniting revenue. I'm Abby Kerr, your host, and on today's episode, my co-host Tim Riesterer met with two really interesting people who are transforming the way sales enablement looks and acts inside of some of the most competitive B2B sales organizations today. I'm talking about Chris Kingman and Barbara Mazziotti. Let me introduce our guests. So Chris Kingman is VP of Sales Transformation at NielsenIQ, where he's leading the evolution of a global sales organization through enablement, effectiveness, and culture. A founding board member of the Revenue Enablement Society, Chris has helped shape the profession's standards and practices for nearly a decade. Before joining NielsenIQ, he spent more than 13 years at TransUnion, building enablement functions from the ground up and driving digital transformation across tools, analytics, and process. Known for bringing structure to complexity, Chris helps organizations align quickly, execute with clarity, and translate strategy into measurable outcomes. His expertise spans strategic enablement leadership, cross-functional change management, and the intersection of sales technology, data, and human performance. Joining Chris is Barbara Mazziotti. Barbara is Senior Director of Global Sales Enablement at Cloudera and is a new board member of the Revenue Enablement Society, responsible for driving the academic council for the Certified Revenue Enablement Professional Program. At Cloudera, she has led enablement for all sales roles worldwide, driving onboarding, product readiness, sales play execution, and SKO programming for 4 years, and will be stepping into a new role to bridge enablement and revenue operations. Barbara brings 25 years of enablement leadership expertise to bear. Prior to Cloudera, Barbara held global head of sales enablement roles at Waters Corporation, GE Digital, and Pitney Bowes, as well as director roles at Cognos IBM Software and i2 Technologies. Barbara was one of the original 100 founders of the Revenue Enablement Society and was the founder and president of the Greater NYC RES chapter. Barbara has built and scaled enablement organizations from the ground up, designed outcome-based sales methodologies, and led multi-region go-to-market transformations supported by world-class Salesforce implementations. And Chris and Barbara are here today to talk with Tim about a new certification for revenue enablement professionals. Let's take a listen.
I'm excited about today's podcast. It's a podcast that I'll say is 4 years in the making, and that is really the formal introduction of a certification program for sales enablement professionals. I'm excited because I think sales enablement professionals are taking a leap forward today because of the work done by my two guests, Chris and Barb from the Revenue Enablement Society. But they're not just from the Revenue Enablement Society. They are practitioners who do this. They have day jobs. You do this every day. You've done it for multiple companies. We work together at multiple companies. So this feels a little like old home week, but I'm super excited for you. I'm proud on behalf of the profession. And everybody's like, well, what are we talking about? So I'm going to start with Chris on this. Chris, welcome and congratulations. This was a brainchild you told me about 4 years ago, the idea of a certification to elevate the profession of sales enablement. Kind of walk us through that journey, get us to where we are today, and then we'll dig into what it is a little bit after that.
Sure. Thanks, Tim, and appreciate you having me. So around 4 years ago, the board of the Sales Enablement Society at that time was, in lots of conversations across academia and research about enablement, and the idea of how do we get it into our colleges came up. The board at that time, just like any other volunteer-led organization, went out into our community and, asked for people to raise their hands, and I put my hand up. And the first group that came together, we kind of worked on what a program would look like. And I just took the lens of, if somebody went to a university for 4 years to study enablement, what would that look like? How would that fit into a university program? And I built out a syllabus with the help of, the volunteers that I thought represented, and again, this is 4 years ago, but represented everything you needed to know. At that time in my career, obviously missed a lot of things. And we put it forward and, sort of a slow moving process there to kind of get traction and find a partner. But over that long period of time, we found a partner eventually in Florida State University. And then we had to go out and find the right practitioners. And so I went out and found the people who demonstrated the skills, who did the jobs. I interviewed, I think, over 80 people, got to know our community really well, and who could talk about what they did. Some people had a story to tell, and some people could just tell a really good story. And so we had to really weed out the established practitioners. And from there, we landed on a very small group of folks and another long waiting period to kind of get everything tied up from a paperwork and administrative legal perspective. But then we were off to the races developing content. And the team that would eventually form kind of the initial academic council, which is now led by Barbara, came together, and we all put together the first version of this program, which I would say covers a lot of the topics under the umbrella of enablement. But certainly, in the interest of getting a quality program out, we put together what we thought most enablers would need. But as we engaged with the people in not only the academic council, but in the cohort itself, we realized enablement is broad, but what people do in their roles for, as an enabler is just as broad, if not broader, from a topic. And today we're working on, and by we, I mean Barbara's leading the next iteration of this program, the expansion of this program to even better prepare people in the field, entering the field, or wanting to grow in the field of enablement.
So let's talk a little bit about the program then. And Barbara, you're taking it over. So just tell me by background, in case some of the listeners who are on the sales side, sales leadership, sales management, don't know about the Revenue Enablement Society, let alone the academic council of the Revenue Enablement Society. Maybe give us a little bit of background on that, and then begin to walk us into what exactly it is and how it works, this certification program.
Sure. Well, the certification program is right now, it's a 5-month program that we've set up into 5 different sections. So one module or topic per month. And then they have a combination of self-paced learning. We do live panel discussions with the experts and authors who've been in that particular module. We have an interactive discussion with the students, and we give them projects because we want it to be very applicable so that we talk about a topic, they apply it to their own situation, and we end with a capstone. And the capstone project is for them to make a significant step forward in their organization or in their quest to move up in the organization, variety of different places in terms of how they can contribute.
So that's awesome. And this was built by a group called the Revenue Enablement Society. Tell us a little bit more about that for our folks who don't know what it is.
Well, the Revenue Enablement Society is actually the second iteration of the Sales Enablement Society. So it was 10 years ago. There were about 100 of us who went to Florida and said, we believe in this. We believe that this profession needs to have a society of the practitioners. And we stood in a room, in a hotel room in Florida, and said, we signed a constitution saying that we're going to work together to professionalize what we do, make it a clear profession, and then come together. We were going to build chapters across the country. And there are now 13,000 people around the world who are participants in the now Revenue Enablement Society. So name change. Started off as sales enablement, but what we're really trying to do is expand that focus to say enabling all parts of the revenue engine. So that was one of our big distinctions right now in the market, as to say it's not just the salespeople, it's the customer success people. Are you getting revenue from professional services and training that you're selling? How does demand generation fit into that? And looking at it as the whole revenue engine, and therefore enabling that group of people and connecting and collaborating across that revenue engine.
So then I assume, Chris, that these 5 major components of the certification program are also now reflective of that broader footprint, the revenue enablement. I don't know if this is fair off the top of your head. Like, what are the 5 moves of the certification program, and maybe any underlying descriptions, so we kind of get a sense of the totality of it?
Oh man, now you're putting me on the spot here, Tim.
Well, I'll let Barb could jump in. She between you could come up with the five.
Sure. It starts out with the foundations in history, right? What is not only the history of enablement, right? Because depending on who you ask, it's a rather young history, right? But sales itself, and the things that have influenced the sales as a profession, right? Some of the overarching themes that are consistent, even in this kind of newer profession, things around training, things around perhaps content, perhaps onboarding, perhaps supporting programs. As we go into the second module, it's all focused on the buyer, right? And understanding your buyer's journey. Because at the end of the day, you're enabling a salesperson to go to a buyer, right? And that's kind of the next evolution of enablement in that sense is helping sellers better understand their buyer, helping organizations better understand their buyers processes, things like that, right? As we move into, I would say halfway through the program, we get into tech platforms, systems, programs, right? How to conduct an analysis on your sales tech or a maturity assessment on your sales tech. What are the typical programs an enablement function should run? What are some of the ones that, you would call a stretch, right? Historically, were ran by sales, but now there's a reason you should bring this to your organization. We go into AI, right? Because that's the latest, greatest thing that's impacting our industry, right? And it's the most in-demand skill. And then as you go towards the end of the program, it's aligning your function, understanding how it fits in the business, and then moving from reactive to strategic and aligning to strategic goals of the organization.
I'm imagining wrapped into those sections, it's all about impact measurement, ROI, and demonstrating the desired outcomes as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And Barbara, I'd love to hear your perspective because you're much closer to the content than I am at this point.
Thanks, Chris. What I wanted to share was more of the objectives of what we want to be able to have people achieve by being part of the program. And so we've got 7 objectives for them as they come into the program. So first is our goal is to help early career and mid-career enablement people understand the breadth and scope of what enablement can be. So the first thing is to say we're going to build strong practitioners that have a broad understanding. And so with that, we'll say, this is everything that you can do in an enablement organization. So one of the things that we're going as an output is for them to be able to assess the maturity of their own organization. So if this is the possibility, where is my organization versus that standard? So we are publishing a functional maturity model for revenue enablement and introducing the students to that so they have something to compare against. And so if that's what the function can do, which we can talk more about, the next is the people in your organization. So the next step is a competency model for enablers. So we worry about competency models for salespeople, for customer success people all the time. Well, we need to worry about it for ourselves as well. So we're establishing the competency model for enablers and what you can have as growth path within an enablement function. So again, a yardstick. Where are you? Help assess your people, and then have a development path for the enablers in there. We're considering how we would put that out as something for the whole organization through the Revenue Enablement Society, meaning that, like the community. So then we would have a body of knowledge to say, well, what's the state of enablers and the skills of that enablement community? So you're not just comparing yourself within your own organization, but you can compare against the body of, thousands of people who are doing this enablement job. Then it's the point of how do you organize your own business? Chris talked about the strategy of running an enablement function. So we do emphasize the fact that running enablement is running a business within the business. So how do you do that? Setting a charter, having a planning process, having the strategy that connects to the strategy of the organization that you're supporting. And then, as he mentioned, the things that you need to do are we need to ensure people are ready. Do they understand their jobs? So are you doing the onboarding? Are you ensuring continuous readiness so that the organization can take advantage of go-to-market opportunities? If the people aren't ready, you're not going to be able to achieve those corporate goals. So let's worry about the people. Let's worry about the process. So what's the maturity of the processes for the revenue organization, the methodologies that they apply? Then content is another area, a content strategy to have the assets and the messages available to people to have terrific conversations so that they have that, whether they're in a sales role or customer success role. Enablement provides those assets and keeps those up to date and works with the organization to do that. The L&D part of it, of designing programs, designing certifications for your constituents, and then a big focus on executive communications. How do you communicate the initiatives and the value that you're bringing as an enablement organization, as a strategic partner to accelerate revenue?
Yeah, I know it was 10 years ago when we all stood around a room and pledged allegiance to the discipline. And here we are with this certification, but it sounds like there's been a whole lot of work to organize all of these different operational sort of responsibilities and put discipline and rigor around them. I guess, where do you think we are in the ebb and flow of where companies are valuing the enablement function? Yeah, I think there's been an ebb and a flow. Do you feel like we're now on the uprise again, where people are recognizing the necessity and the value of this function, and you guys are coming behind it? Or maybe what you're doing is causing that, because now people see that there's a serious discipline. So I'll go back to you, Chris. What is your thought about sort of the current opinion and commercial leadership and organizations as a whole about the enablement function? And then Barbara, I'll come back to you.
Sure. I definitely think it is a signal of maturity, right? I think you nailed it spot on with ebb and flow. Massive hirings, massive reductions, massive hirings, massive reductions, right? And we'll set aside all the economic factors that contribute to that too. But I think enterprises and businesses as a whole are having a much more keen understanding of what enablement means for them. It is beyond a buzzword at this point. It's a critical business function.
Mm.
I think what you're seeing now is how serious businesses take it, right? And the ones that have invested early or committed early did it with a level of, I would say, like, commitment and intelligence, like really deployed it in the right ways, are much farther along. I would venture to guess that the businesses that have invested in it and consistently invested in it, but also evaluated how it's being applied, are exceeding their peers for those that do just reactive enablement, or do the sales manager is going to handle the training. Tim, let them figure it out. I think it's a new era of appreciation and adoption is what, if I had to sum it up, Tim.
What if your next big revenue move didn't come from a blog post or a cold LinkedIn scroll, but from a real conversation with leaders who've been there?
As the world of sales is constantly evolving and constantly changing, I think it's even more critical to get together with people to understand how are they helping to solve some of the problems that our buyers have today.
Meet Emblaze, a community of sharp B2B minds, CROs, CSOs, rising stars, sharing what's actually working in sales, enablement, and customer growth.
We always find a lot of value in the partnerships that we're able to form with some of the other great organizations that are part of the team here. And personally, I love the opportunity to connect with my peer group outside of other organizations and learn from them and try to figure out if there's things that they're doing that we can pull into our organization and benefit from.
Join a monthly forum, dig into science-backed strategy, and get insight you won't find in your feed. Start your Emblaze journey today at emblazegrowth.com.
Yeah, I'm seeing this from companies. I'm going to call it enablement, but what I'm hearing is we've got to demonstrate to our current investors and then maybe our future investors. Like if we're going to go IPO or we're going to, like, we have to show that there is rigor and discipline that will help us scale growth, and that it can't be this accidental. We had a cool widget, we got some growth, or that category took off, we got some growth. Like they have to show that the company has grown up or glowed up and is now serious about the scaling of their revenue engine. So, Barbara, what are your thoughts? Is sales enablement part of that story, and where do you see the current opinion meter, I'll call it, of the strategic importance of enablement?
I think we've gone past, I would call the first phase. Everybody recognizes they need onboarding and they need product training. Great. Yes. And somebody needs to do that. Okay, fine. However, I think where we're at is and people get into, oh, we need a methodology, we need a sales process. Great. But right now, a lot are venturing in, and the titles are changing as well. So there has been more people who have gone to the revenue enablement title, and it's interesting to see when they make that shift. What does that mean? So I'm at a enablement conference today, and part of what the discussion is that scope change. So it's recognizing that there's other parts of that we have to enable as well. So there's a scope change going on right now. And I think that's that's fuzzy. I think we're just growing into that change to say it's more than just salespeople, it's customer success and so forth. And then the other aspect is layering on strategic initiatives. So instead of it being a sales play, I think many people, just everybody gets, oh, it's a sales play, let's have a focus on this particular audience. But really, is it a sales play, or is it a corporate effort that says our target is to increase our market penetration in manufacturing, and our goal is to get an extra $50 million from this effort? So now it's not just a play, oh, we're going to get more leads, we're going to open some new opportunities. That is another area of just beginning. That's not what everybody's doing yet. To say I'm connecting a play to a revenue goal, we're going to track it and measure it as a coordinated team across sales, marketing, ops, and we work together at it with a goal. So that type of initiative layer is what we're growing into right now, I would say.
So I think that is so important to realize, sort of, as you said, Barbara, the expectation on, hey, our responsibility is to deliver $50 million of incremental growth in this particular area. Such a far cry from my job is to certify people on product knowledge. And I'm assuming, coming back to the certification, which is what brought us to this podcast, I'd love each of you to comment on how the certification not only up-levels the profession, but moves it in this direction of greater accountability and the ability to prove value. And Chris, I'll ask you, like, how do you think this certification helps the team accomplish that on behalf of their companies?
Sure. Barbara touched on this earlier, but it is standardizing frameworks, right? A lot of the work that she's leading, and I'll certainly let her talk about this, but it's to put forward those resources. So an enabler, wherever they are, can lead with a maturity assessment, lead with a tech stack assessment, have a competency model, have a framework to follow to find a methodology that best fits the business, right? Not the one with the newest book or the catchiest headline. So let's say it's the basic tools, Tim, right? It's the things that an enabler is going to need every day. Thinking broader, in it, the comment of we need to grow versus we need to grow specifically in this segment, right? It's going to help practitioners bridge that gap, because I think prevailing, attitude or thought over the last 10 years was strategy just happens. It just executes itself, right? And the reality is you need that enablement layer to bridge the strategy to the execution, down to the button clicks, down to the call this person, say this thing. It's that level of granularity that enablers will be prepared to provide a organization, right? And it takes enablers out of a support function and into a strategic partner. So when their strategy team or CSO says we need to grow by this in this segment, they can confidently put the pieces in place that has that plan that says, okay, here's everything that we're going to do to support that this happens. And then we can measure if it's working. All of those kind of ambiguous topics of how do we know training's working and, are sellers doing the right things? Enablers are going to be prepared with the tools and resources to address those questions.
I'm sure, Barbara, that is the ultimate goal, that a certified sales enabler is going to be someone that the organization can count on with an even greater level of expectation, will produce provable results with the programming and the investments that the company makes. Tell me more about how you think that the certification program will help drive that.
Building on what Chris said, when we teach them about things that, Tim, you do in your own business, and that is a value pyramid, looking at that, turn it on ourselves and say, what is the value of the $50 million that the organization is trying to get in incremental revenue? What are the levers that we can pull as enablement? What are the activities that we're going to have to do? So it means we're going to need this many more leads. We're going to need to do each of these other tasks and have the skill level follow that. Now we can be specific. So if we help the enablers be specific and connect to corporate goals and initiatives, and they know how, then we can, with the certification program, impact many, many other organizations to raise the bar themselves. I've had interesting conversations lately, which is probably a trend. All of the venture capital. So I've talked with 2 different venture capital companies, and they're very excited to send people in the organizations that they've purchased so that they can, they're incubating smaller companies who don't have that discipline. Well, if in a couple months I can send someone to be now a certified revenue enablement professional, well, now I just have raised the ability of that new company that we've invested in to meet the goals that they're setting as a venture capital company. So
See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm hearing too, is like they have to be able to show the next investor that this thing is serious, that it isn't an accident, that there's a discipline, there's a construct behind it that will give you a better shot at the scalable growth that you're promising. It's one thing to promise a trajectory, and it's another to be able to show the scaffolding is there to get you there. And I think I hear you saying that certification is one piece of evidence that you've improved the odds that the arrow on the chart is going to get there. And literally the word enablement is manifest in that. I don't want to get too hyperbolic about our careers here and how we impact the company, but I think you guys have taken things from an abstract to a concrete, and you've taken things from like complicated, and that means nobody does it or knows how to do it right, and you've made it simple, concrete versus abstract and complicated. It feels like that's what the certification is to me. It's just put some form on the enablement function. I know Barbara and Chris, if you each want to comment on that.
if I can go first, I'm kind of tired of saying that people don't know what enablement is. Like, I'm sorry. I'm well over that. It's, look, you gotta do these, you gotta cover these 10 functional capabilities that you have to do. You serve the organization in these particular ways, and when you can measure it, and let's just do it instead of debating it. Let's just do it.
Yeah,
There you go, Chris. Darn it. Right.
I guess I have to debate Barbara. No, to build on that, it's a crowdsourced concept, right? It's field proven resources, it's field proven frameworks, right? So it's things that work in the field, maybe before academia research gets to it. And it's, to your point, Tim, we're making it really simple and really easy to follow because it doesn't need to be hard, but it is relevant stuff and it's applicable things. It's not just academic and it's not just theoretical. It's I've done this in my job and here's how you can do it too. And, one of the most important things to me is a practitioner goes to this program and learns skills and resources, or gets access to resources that they otherwise may not come across just by doing their job. Not everybody works at an enterprise where they need a content strategy, or they have the opportunity to bring in an enablement platform or a content management platform, or customer segment specific enablement strategies. Like, we've had a lot of people say, I've never done that. What is that? And a couple of people say, yeah, that's part of my job today. What are you talking about? Right. And so we're trying to bring in everything that everybody does, but make it as simple and accessible as possible.
So, Barbara, it's practitioner led and it's practitioner sourced, but yet you went and got a university's sort of imprimatur. I don't know what. I don't even know if I use that word correctly there, but what does that mark mean to you guys and mean to this program? While I totally appreciate the practitioner sourced and practitioner led, how important was it, and why do you have the university connection you do to Florida State?
I'll take that one. I think we just have an established relationship with Lef Bonnie, who's been a fantastic partner, and Florida State has been very eager to innovate and create and add value to the enablement field. And Lef himself has been very vested in the program and bringing a lot of his knowledge and his experience and his research to the program too. I think there's a shared vision of, by enabling enablers, we can further enable sellers and sales organizations, right? And sales students, and elevate both professions simultaneously. And for me, Florida State has really shown that they support the mission of RES and elevating the profession.
Awesome. I'm going to give you the last word, Barbara, as the newly minted head of the Revenue Enablement Society Academy. So why don't you take us home with your final thoughts?
Well, what I really want to express is the fact that this is also community driven, and it will grow and morph as the needs do. So I think we can be very reactive and responsive to the changes in the needs in sales organizations around the world. So we're going to be bringing in not only people who have done things for a very long time, but we'll also be talking with folks who are doing the innovative things, both from the platform side, for example, but innovators in what they're doing so that they can acceleration, right? So if we have one idea that's happening in Minnesota, the people in Denmark have no idea. And so by our combination of leverage the experience, leverage the university background, and find the innovators, we can bring it together and keep it as a living, breathing thing that will advance as the needs of the industry advance as well.
The value of community and is make sure that peers are talking to peers, but community can also mean that we're all sharing worst practices, not best practices. So what I love is you've now put a level of professionalism and rigor on top of community so that we're all working from, if you will, the same playbook, and there's a set of consistency in the community that advances the profession. I love it. And just as a practitioner myself, and now someone who consults around it, it just does my heart good to see what you both, Barbara and Chris, have done for the profession. And I hope everybody, if you're not in sales enablement, you're listening to this, get your sales enablement professional to check out the Revenue Enablement Society and their new certification program. If you are enablement, run out, do this, and do both yourself and your company a favor, and up-level your opportunity and performance. So Chris and Barbara, thank you so much for being with us, but also thank you for what you're doing for the profession.
Great
Thank
to talk
you.
with you, Tim. Thanks.
All right. See you soon.
Well, that was another great conversation. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you so much, Chris and Barbara. And thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Emblazers Show on your favorite podcast app. And thank you for being a part of this community. We'll see you next time.